Let's talk about Kirk Cousins, the Minnesota Vikings, and Sam Darnold. The Minnesota Vikings have made a lot of moves over this free agency period up to this point, and I love the moves that they have made. Kirk Cousins went and he signed with the Atlanta Falcons. I will say this, if you wanted Kirk Cousins to stick around, they just could not pay that salary. He got $100 million fully guaranteed by the Atlanta Falcons. It was no reason for the Minnesota Vikings to go out there and pay Kirk Cousins that much money. He's only won one playoff game with this team in that entire tenure. Now, Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback, and he will be missed, but I do believe that Kevin O'Connell gets the chance to go out there and develop his own quarterback. It's the way to go for the next couple of years. Kirk Cousins is 34 years old. He's an older quarterback. And I look at a guy like Kirk Cousins that's coming off that Achilles injury, and I do not believe that the Minnesota Vikings would have been better off if they were to go out there and re-sign Kirk Cousins, especially at that contract that he wanted from this team. And I do think that Kirk Cousins will fare well with the Atlanta Falcons, just with what was going on with the Minnesota Vikings. They were more than just a Kirk Cousins piece away. And excuse me, Kirk Cousins is 35 years old. Now let's talk about this Sam Darnold situation. They signed this kid to a one-year deal, $10 million. He can have a Baker Mayfield / Geno Smith type of season with the Minnesota Vikings. This kid is in the perfect situation. You have weapons around this kid, and I mean elite weapons. Justin Jefferson is one of the best wide receivers in the game. You have Jordan Addison, who had 911 receiving yards last season. And he also had 10 receiving touchdowns. And he had to be the number one wide receiver for a couple of weeks because Justin Jefferson missed some games dealing with an injury. So we know that Jordan Addison is big time the same way with Justin Jefferson. And you have TJ Hockenson as well. This is one of those few teams I put into the category. Any quarterback should be able to come in and have some success with this team. You have Kevin O'Connell, who's a very good offensive-minded coach, especially at the head coaching position. Made the playoffs his first year. This season did not make the NFL playoffs. They would have made the NFL playoffs, in my opinion, if Kirk Cousins was able to stay fully healthy. He had 18 passing touchdowns through 8 weeks of action before he tore that Achilles. And that defense started to play better on the back end of the season with Brian Flores. I'm going to talk about that defense in just a second. So adding in a guy like Sam Darnold is the right move to do. He's a veteran quarterback, but he's only 26 years old. This is a kid that got a raw deal from day one. When the New York Jets selected him in the NFL draft, in the same draft class of guys like Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, remember him, and Lamar Jackson, they did not have wide receivers there ready for this kid, and they put him into a terrible situation. Adam Gase was the head coach. He never got a true shot with a decent team in the NFL. He went over to the Carolina Panthers, and for 3 games, when they first traded for him, he looked very good. Then he got exposed against the Dallas Cowboys. The offensive line was terrible. Christian McCaffrey went down, and the kid struggled with injuries. But Sam Darnold did look good for those 3 games. Short sample size. We fast forward to the second season with the Carolina Panthers because they traded a second-round pick for this kid and they exercised the fifth-year option. They acquired Baker Mayfield. They let Baker Mayfield go. On the back end of that season with Steve Wilkes, he looked very good. He looked very competent and he looked very solid. And that's with the Carolina Panthers team that did not have the best weapons offensively. Yes, they had DJ Moore, but you no longer had Christian McCaffrey. Like I mentioned before, you're putting this kid into a very good situation with these wide receivers and that tight end that they do have. And you bring in Aaron Jones as well. Now, Aaron Jones, solid running back. He's not the same running back he has been for the last couple of years for the Green Bay Packers due to injuries. That's why the Green Bay Packers moved off of him in favor of Josh Jacobs. But you're getting an Aaron Jones right now that is very angry. He's very upset. He loved Green Bay. Green Bay moved off of him for another running back. So you know that he's going to run hard. He's going to play hard. Hell, look at what he does against the Dallas Cowboys every single time he plays them because they pass up on him in the NFL draft. So imagine what he's going to do if he's available against the Green Bay Packers, a team that drafted him and basically cut him after he had an amazing playoff run with this team. They do have to do a better job of running the football as a whole. I like Ty Chandler a lot. I do not see the Minnesota Vikings being a team that is forced to go out there and draft a running back in round 2 or round 3. Aaron Jones, if he can stay healthy, that's a very solid running back for this team. Ty Chandler gave you some very good yards and gave you some very good numbers last season as well. He averaged 4.5 yards a carry, 461 rushing yards on the season, 3 rushing touchdowns. And you also acquired Cam Akers via a trade by the Los Angeles Rams. And Cam Akers is a a guy that struggled with injuries the last couple of years, did not do much with the Minnesota Vikings, but a lot of that is because of the interior of the offensive line. You build the interior of the offensive line up through the NFL draft or making more moves in free agency, and I think the offense would be complete. I'm not saying that Sam Darnold is going to be the next best quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, but if you give this guy a fair chance, he can go out there and he can shock some people. I think that he has the right abilities to go out there and do the right things, and he's coming over from a familiar system. You know, the last team that he was with the San Francisco 49ers, where he was the backup to Brock Purdy. And he came in against the Baltimore Ravens, and he did look good. He did throw an interception in that game. He was basically in mop-up duty. But I think that Sam Darnold is a good bridge veteran to have. And do not be shocked if he has a breakout year with this team. Regardless, they should be trying to select a quarterback in the first round, whether it's Michael Penix Jr. or J.J. McCarthy. One of those guys, or you try to move up and possibly get another quarterback of your liking. But if one of those guys slide down to you, you'll be in a great situation, because I look at this defense. They made some moves. They lost Danielle Hunter to the Houston Texans. Oddly enough, the Houston Texans lost Jonathan Grenard to the Minnesota Vikings. Jonathan Grenard last season had 12.5 sacks. Looked very good. One of the better pass rushers in the AFC, and this is something that the Minnesota Vikings wanted to do. They wanted to get cheaper and still get good production. Well, you got this guy for a bargain. And he fits with Brian Flores once on the defensive front. Harrison Phillips is still with this team, elite run stopper. He's not going to go out there and be a sack machine, but he's going to go out there and stop the run and be very decent across the defensive line. And you pair him up with a guy like Jonathan Grenard, I love that. The secondary, it needs work. I've said it over and over again. The secondary did play better in the last 4 to 5 weeks, but they need to go out there and get some cornerback help. Byron Murphy Jr. is not a true number one corner. He did play better down the stretch, but he's not a true number one. You have Harrison Smith on the back end. This guy has played forever, and he has played very good with the Minnesota Vikings. He's still a solid safety to have. 0 interceptions last season, 3 forced fumbles, 3 pass deflections. He's not going to go out there and get a bunch of interceptions in this stage of his career. He's 35 years old. He's a run stopper. He's an in-box safety, and I do think that he can still give you some very good production as well. I do feel bad for a guy like Lewis Cine because he cannot even see the field. Instead, Cameron Bynum is there at that free safety spot, and Cameron Bynum played very good. 9 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and had 94 solo tackles. That was 6th most in the NFL. I think the Minnesota Vikings are headed into the right direction without Kirk Cousins. I do not believe that they'll be major contenders in this division, but I say this over and over again, and I'm going to say it again. Do not be shocked if Sam Darnold has a lot of success with the Minnesota Vikings. And it's a step up over those backup quarterbacks they had last season. Josh Dobbs came in, had a great game against the Atlanta Falcons, but the turnovers did this kid in. And it seemed like when he had that horrible pass that got Justin Jefferson injured, they were pretty much done with him. They pulled the plug. You had Nick Mullins come in. All those interceptions that man threw was ridiculous. And the fact that they were still in those games against the Detroit Lions later in the season is pretty phenomenal to talk about how the rest of this team is talented in certain aspects. And then you also had Jaron Hall, who came in as well. He's not ready to play at the NFL level. I would not be surprised they moved off of him in general. So Sam Darnold is the best quarterback right now in the Minnesota Vikings roster, and it's the ideal fit. You're bringing in a bridge quarterback that's been around the NFL for some years now. He can mentor the next young up and coming quarterback if you want to go into that situation with a guy like a Michael Penix Jr. or a J.J. McCarthy. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the Minnesota Vikings, and is Sam Darnold set up to succeed with the Minnesota Vikings? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one, guys, stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for watching the video, guys. God bless.